Hello music makers, welcome back. Part 2 of Fancy Bass, or whatever I called the last video, looking at how to write the bass lines and how to make them fit in your production. If you missed part 1, that's where we learned to make the sound itself, so go watch that first. Okay, let's look at how to write these lines. So I'm just going to give you the basic outline here, not a strict set of rules. This is for two reasons. Firstly, the principles behind this current trend are very basic. It's really just 8 notes and a good sidechain. But the second reason is because this is very simple, it means there's not a lot of room for variation, which usually means this trend won't stay around very long, as everyone who sticks to it religiously is going to start sounding the same. And inevitably, the audience gets bored. So I'll just give you the basics, and then the good news is it's up to you to evolve the sound onwards. So here's the line I've got going on. I told you they were basic. Just 8 notes, or 8th notes. As I mentioned last video, this one is based around F. Don't forget, after all, if you're trying to get your bass as good as your favorite track, make sure you're in a similar key. I did do a video on how key affects bass, if you're interested. Anyway, arguably more important than key is scale. If you want that tougher, darker, or cooler vibe, you'll want to be making bass lines in scales called Phrygian, minor, or harmonic minor. Now, don't worry if you don't know what any of those are, I'll explain. So as I said, this one is all based around F. That's what we call our tonal center. That's where it's all rooted. That would be the key of this track. Basically, it's where it spends the most time. All we have to do is choose a couple of deviations away from that. The scale is what determines which notes we pick. First of all, let me put this back on a single root note so we can start from scratch. I'm also going to take the glide off our synth here so it doesn't bend between notes. That way you can hear them a lot clearer. There we go. So what notes do we pick? Well, there is one note that is shared between all of those 3 scales I mentioned: minor, harmonic minor, and Phrygian. It's called a flat 3. And to put that in plain English so you don't have to learn any scales, all we have to do is count 3 up from our root note. So in my case here, because I'm in F, 3 up is G sharp or A flat, same thing. For example, if your track happened to be in G, 3 up from that is A sharp or B flat. Simple as that. So that note appears in all 3 scales I mentioned, but now let me show you the differences in flavor between the 3. So a scale typically has 7 notes, and the differences between these 3 all occur in the notes 2 and 7. So let's make a quick line with the notes 1, 2, 3, and 7, so you can hear that change in mood. Let's start with minor. As you might expect, note 2 is indeed 2 up. We already have our 3. We just need our 7. The 7th note in a minor scale we actually get from counting 10 up from our root note. Or 2 down. That's the same note, just in the octave below. See, this one is also D sharp, or E flat. That lets us keep it in the lower range if you want to stay down there. So there's our 4 main notes, 1, 2, 3, and 7. And currently this one is in normal minor, or natural minor, as you might hear it called. Now we have that in place, it's really simple to get to the others. For example, the only difference between minor and harmonic minor is note 7. In harmonic minor, the 7th is sharpened, or in other words, up 1. Sounds like this. It's a subtle change, but it is a different flavor, right? And then for Phrygian, the 7 is the same as normal minor, and its only difference is that note 2 is flattened, down 1. I always think that Phrygian sounds like minor's evil cousin. It's just a bit darker, isn't it? So there's the basics. 8 notes on whatever key you end up choosing, mostly on the root, with a couple of variations using notes 2, 3, or 7 based on the scale of your choice. Easy! But what if you want to go beyond that? Let me suggest some directions. I've given you the most common 4 there, 1, 2, 3, and 7. What if you want to use the rest of the scale, 4, 5, and 6? Luckily, again, all of those notes are shared between all 3 scales. So all you have to do is count up either 5, 7, or 8 from your root. And those will work with any of the other notes we've talked about. If you ever forget those distances, you can always just start on A, use all of the white notes. That pattern of notes gives you all the distances for a normal minor scale. So that gives you all 7 notes in a minor scale you can select from. Then for harmonic minor, you can raise the 7, or for Phrygian, you can flatten the 2. Then all you have to do to make that a different key is move that entire pattern to your new root note. That way you don't have to learn any scales or memorize any number distances. So for example here, now I can see all 7 note options for F-sharp Phrygian. So that's note options. What about groove, rhythm? Inevitably, some might want to break out of this square 8th pattern. For that, we can do one of 2 things. We can either subdivide or syncopate. More fancy words to describe actually quite simple things. So subdivision, that's just adding more notes in the same space. For example, instead of this being 1/8, we can now make it 2/16. Anyone used to dealing with a certain herb should be familiar with this system. So that's subdivision. Syncopation is just as simple. If we get rid of one of those 16ths that's on the beat and just leave the one that's off the beat, that in-between note that's left, that's syncopated. So here we're changing the groove. We're moving away from that tougher square thing over to something a bit more bouncy. So between the groove and the notes, have a think about what type of vibe you're going for. Okay, moving on to the mixing side of things. This section might confuse you if you've not watched this video. I mix in a very different way to most people. It's actually easier for most people to understand. It's just a bit alien if you're not used to it. And as always, it still comes down to ear training. You have to be able to hear this stuff. There's no magic tricks or secret sauce, I'm afraid. The first problem you're going to have to wrestle with when mixing bass is not the bass itself yet, it's the kick drum. Not in terms of processing though. Ideally, you shouldn't have to do anything to your kick drums. There's no processing on this one you're hearing now. The struggle is simply finding the right one. I'm never going to pretend it's ever easy, but here's a couple of tips. First, you need to be referencing. Always be referencing. You see at the top here, I have my reference track on the first track. Secondly, you want to be keeping that reference at full level and trying to match it at full level. Don't be thinking we're going to be matching the level and tone later through mastering. That is a massive mistake. Also, don't forget you can use more than one reference track. You might be able to find the average of a few that you like. Thirdly, whatever you reference, make sure it's in a similar key. As I said earlier, that affects bass. And with those references in place, now it's just a case of going searching. My favorite places are Splice, or this plugin called XO, which groups all my existing samples into similar sounding areas, or Kick 3, can make kick drums from scratch, or make kick drums based on samples you feed it. Okay, now we've found our kick drum. That kick drum is inevitably going to be close to full level, 0 dB FS. Now we have to fit our bass around it. This is hard because normally our ears could be tricked into hearing deeper sounds by hearing the harmonics from above them. But with darker basses like this, there's not a lot there. So we have to do everything we can to make the most of the space we have left. Otherwise, these basses just get buried. The first thing we're going to need is separate control over the sub-frequencies. The sub-area is what takes up most of the energy in the entire track, so we need a lot of control down there. So here I have the MIDI from my bass part also playing a separate track which just has a sine wave on it. Don't forget to swap your synth into monophonic mode, just one note at once, so you don't get accidentally overlapping notes. Those can waste a lot of energy. Now we can set the level of our sub to match our reference. Again, this is a good practice of your ear training. Also, you're going to need good monitoring. If you're struggling though, you can use free tools like Isolate, so you can isolate the sub frequencies, set that to below the first harmonic of your bass. Remember, I was in F, about 43 Hertz, so the first harmonic of that would be 86. So as long as I set my filter here above 43 and before 86, I can hear the subs of both tracks. Another tool to help is if you take an FFT analyzer, like the free Span here, and speed up its response, you might be able to gauge where the sub is resting in between the kick drum peaks. Now, the first thing you're going to notice, because you've got a full level kick drum and a sub has been added to it, you're going to hear distortion. It's farting at us. We don't want that. So it's sidechain time. We can afford to be quite ruthless with this because, as I said, the subs account for most of the energy in the track. So for maximum headroom and volume, ideally we want no overlap. I like to do it this way. I take the free plugin STFU, drop one on the kick, reset the envelope, and use this to see how long the kick is. Then all we have to do is make the opposite shape on our sub. There we go, no distortion. If you look at the master level there, we've managed to get a kick and a sub coexisting at the same level as a mastered reference, without going over, without using a limiter, and without any mastering at all. Perfect. Next step. So kick and sub are matched to the reference. It's just the rest of the bass left. First, we have to separate our main bass sound from the subs now. We can't afford to have two sub frequencies coexisting. You heard what happened when the kick and the sub added together. So I'm going to use a high pass filter and only let frequencies through above that sub frequency. Adjusting this by ear to get close to the reference I was using, I had to put it around 85. Just encroaching on that first harmonic. It wasn't very dominant in the reference. Obviously, yours might be different. Don't take that number arbitrarily. It's not fixed in stone. Use your ears. And speaking of using your ears, you might want to try some different filter types depending on what EQs you have available. For example, here, if possible, I usually reach for a linear phase filter, like this free ZL splitter here, because those take up less headroom, in theory at least. But I found I actually preferred the sound and it was closer to the reference when I used a normal high-pass filter from the stock EQ. So that's the subs cleaned up, but we still have the rest of the frequencies to manage. And here's the reason we separated the bass. Because remember, even though that kick drum is full level, it's not made of all frequencies at all times. Only the subs of a kick drum are the long frequencies. The upper frequencies of a kick, while still high in level, they don't occur for anywhere near as long. That lets us sidechain the upper bass differently to the sub. Now, to be able to get this bass up to the level of the reference without distorting, I ended up needing two sidechains. The first is another volume envelope. This is mostly a rhythmic sidechain. It's there to give us that off-on bounce. As you can see though, it doesn't need to cut anywhere near as drastically as the sub, as there aren't as many frequencies to get out of the way of. To get out of the way of any other remaining frequencies, I'm using a spectral sidechain. This one's a freebie called Flora Lite, only ducking the frequencies needed coming from the kick drum. That tidies up the rest, and the hard work is done. The rest of the processing here is kind of personal preference. I've put Voxengo sound delay on here for groove reasons. I found moving the whole sound back a little bit helped it sound more lazy, slinky. It's only 6 milliseconds. You might not be able to hear that difference, but again, more ear training for you. Oh, and side note, micro shifts in the timing like this will change its phase relationship with the sub. In this case, I actually preferred the sound, but if you lose any bass, you'll have to add the same delay back to your sub track. And lastly, a little bit of mono-safe stereo width for the headphone users. That's it. Now you can add the rest of the track back. As you can hear, because we've got our fundamentals in place now, adding the drums doesn't add any distortion, and you should be good to go. Okie dokie. If you learned something, don't forget to return the favor with the like button or subscribe. It really does help the channel out, thank you. And if you're feeling really generous, there's a link in the description to buy me a coffee. But until next week, I will see you in the comments. Bye-bye.
Hey, no phone, who this? I'ma pull up in a brand new